People always say that you have to have money to make money, and that there's an extraordinary level of sacrifice on the road to success. So how is it that investors like us, who didn't start out with much money and who don't rely on banks and credit, how is it that we can increase our income and build our wealth in a way that doesn't require us replacing one full-time job with another while still enjoying the things in life that matter most to us? That has always been the big question, and this podcast reveals the answers. I am Kari Lyke, and this is the Investor Warrior.
At the stream. Hello. Hopefully they can hear us.
I think I'm just going to take this off.
Don't take it off. Don't take it off. Don't take it off. Don't take it off.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Investor Warrior, and we're having some audio video technical difficulties this morning, but I think we are back on track. So welcome back to the show. This is a show about real estate investing with a little bit of life mixed in. And today I have the honor and the privilege of interviewing my own very special husband, Howie Lyke, because we are starting a series on crash and burns. Crash and burns, because I think that almost every successful investor or business person, entrepreneur that I've met has had some kind of rebuild in their life. Mm-hmm. And I was listening to a YouTube video with Elon Musk recently, and I've never really heard him be interviewed before. I don't know much about him. I haven't studied him. I haven't heard him talk. But he was being interviewed, and he was talking about how back in kind of the early days of Tesla, which isn't that long ago, like 17, 18, 19, he was talking about they were on the brink of bankruptcy all the time. And he had to survive that. And he's had his ups and downs. And every entrepreneur I talk to has their ups and downs. And some entrepreneurs have had total wipeouts multiple times. And I think it's important for us to be aware of this, because it doesn't. Why?
We'll talk about it. About it, understand it. I mean, the more that we learn, the more that we are able to see things coming, right? Things like that, the more that we understand. I think perspectives are really big on this too, because I want to talk a little bit about like the Elon Musk. You know, Donald Trump went through a big bankruptcy, pretty famous, I think in the 90s, if I'm not familiar, and then made a really, really big comeback. Now, both Elon Musk and Donald Trump, as an example, they weren't about ready to live in their cars. Okay. The company was about ready to go bankrupt.
Sure.
He personally wasn't ready to go bankrupt. He personally was still a billionaire.
Yep.
And I think that, you know, when the news, my favorite people in the whole world, the media outlet, when they put these things out, they absolutely do not, explain anything, right? They don't give any perspective. And I don't think a lot of these news media journalists, sorry if I'm offending anybody, even understand the difference between companies going bankrupt versus a person going bankrupt. And so, you know, I look at stories of people that we've never heard of, who aren't living in mansions, right? You know, actually a famous one would be, that everybody would know, would be Robert Kiyosaki. So Robert Kiyosaki and Kim Kiyosaki lived in their van because of the meltdown that they had as entrepreneurs. And don't think that was a good idea with the earphone. You got to put that thing back in, or we're going to lose everything.
Sorry, guys, I can't. I'm not following instructions here.
Yeah. So I'm hoping that people can hear us. So
yes, me too.
The more you mess with the Bluetooth device, the worse it gets.
This is what happens when we introduce new technology and we don't test it first.
Right.
We suffer.
Right. So where was I? Kim and Robert Kiyosaki. Okay, so Kim and Robert Kiyosaki, I think are real. You know, when you talk about a household name,
yes,
that's to me a more applicable example, because you're talking about losing everything, not just a company of mine is not doing well, and I'm going to put that company into bankruptcy while I get into my limousine and go to my mansion, Mar-a-Lago. That's not collapse, right? Sure. That's just the company. And so,
good distinction.
Yeah, no, it's a huge distinction. And of course the media wouldn't, never put that distinction out because it's not it doesn't sell. So
there's no drama.
There's no drama in that, or at least it did.
Some drama.
Or at least it depletes the drama substantially,
Yes.
right? So, I think we're starting a new series called the Crash and Burn series.
Yes.
We have some great guests teed up who aren't household names, and hopefully you can relate to, because they're just like you and me.
And you know what? Crash and Burn always reminds me of. Do you remember when we were teaching Danny how to ride a bike for the first time, and we went out into the cul-de-sac, and we have the funniest video of him, because all of a sudden Howie lets him go and he's cycling and he's all excited and he's coming towards me, but he's also coming towards the curb, and he didn't realize how to brake at the time. We forgot to tell him about the brakes too. Right. And he literally goes into the curb, the front tire goes into the curb. He goes over the handlebars, falls on the ground, the bike falls with him, and both of us are oh, and he gets up and he's excited. And it was such a crash and burn, and we were so proud of him, but it was crash and burn.
That reminds me too, because there's so many different angles to this kind of a conversation. And I think that I had done a presentation on this exactly a year ago in Tucson, Arizona. And we did a podcast based on that presentation. And that presentation that discussion in that podcast was more on the angle of how you recover from it emotionally. Yeah. Right. What's your mindset? How do you focus? Right. The triad focus.
Sure. Which then allows you to come back from it financially.
But I think the focus of this is just the actual story.
Okay. So let's
crashing
hear
and burning.
Your crash and burn story.
What is the story? What is the story?
Not falling off a bike crash and burn, but what's your crash and burn story?
I think we kicked off with me for a couple of reasons. A, I'm an easy guest, right? You just grab me.
Sure. You've had a lot of crash and burns.
And B, I've had a lot of crash and burns, including one epic crash and burn. And I think
You're like the master of failure.
I am the master of failure. In fact, I'm looking at a slide right now that's called Credibility of Failure, My Story.
Okay.
So when it comes to failure,
you're a credible failure.
I am a credible failure. I have a ton of credibility.
What's your favorite quote from Caddyshack?
Oh my God, Caddyshack quotes. I could do 47 Caddyshack quotes.
You're an incredible.
Oh, don't sell yourself short there, Judge. You're an incredible slouch.
Don't sell yourself short there, Howie. You're an incredible failure.
Exactly. Or a tremendous failure. You're a tremendous failure. So I am a tremendous failure.
Okay.
And, it didn't start, it's not just once, right? It wasn't just an accident. And I think that's one of the things to really talk about, because everybody's battle, and I think this was our conversation in the last podcast that we did. It's the battle of the mind, right?
Yes.
But you can't have this conversation without kind of rehashing a little bit of the battle of the mind. Everybody's battle of the mind is their own story about who they are, what they're capable of.
Their thoughts and emotions that are surrounding their life and their perceptions and their memories.
I've been sort of like I've been a bum my whole life, or I've been an asshole my whole life, or I've been a failure my whole life. And, that was definitely my story. That's definitely my story for a long time. It started way back in grade school.
If you could say a word that was repeating in your mind all the time back in grade school, what would it be?
Back in grade school?
Is that where we're starting?
No, not really. I was actually going to start in high school.
Okay. That's grade school.
Okay. Fair enough.
Grade school is high school, right?
I don't know.
What's the word?
A really good question, because I don't know. Your maturity level and your brain processing is different. You're still developing, right? And all that kind of stuff. I think back then my neurosis was trying to fit in.
Okay.
Right?
I know. I have a word. I definitely have a word. I remember.
Okay. Because with your struggles, right?
Yeah.
That time,
my word was ugly.
So you felt ugly.
I felt ugly both inside and outside.
Okay.
Yeah. Ugly.
Yeah. My neurosis up until very recently, and I'm in my mid-50s, my neurosis was that I don't fit in.
Right.
And, we could do a whole podcast on that, but that's not what you're here to talk about.
Okay. So let's start with boarding school. You got shipped to boarding school.
Yeah. You shipped to boarding school. So it's actually a really good question, because it's a good place to start. I don't fit in. So that was my neurosis, right? Now, anybody listening to this, I'm sure you have your own, right? Because we all have our own story, right?
Like you fit in.
There's a lot of that. We could talk about an hour for that.
Right. And we only have half an hour.
Just really quick, because what I want to get to is why these things happen.
Okay, talk fast.
So really quick, I was born in the 60s.
Yes.
60s child. In a area of the country that was very diverse, California. Okay. There was I was born half breed. I was born white,
half white, half
Mexican.
Mexican. Okay.
Grew up in the Mexican American neighborhood.
Yep.
Didn't know the white part of my family.
Right.
Had a white name.
Lauren.
worse.
Oh my God. Howard, Lauren.
Worse than just a white name.
You probably got beat up for that.
I had a name that was like, synonymous with like an old Jewish white guy. So weird, So that's kind of like the genesis of the whole thing.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
And so now, we've talked about the 6 human needs. My
Yeah.
number one need has always been love and connection.
Okay.
So when your number one need is love and connection and you don't fit in, that drives a lot of jacked up behaviors.
Okay. So you got shipped to boarding school.
So in 11th grade, trying to fit in and getting involved with the wrong people, i.e. gangs.
Yes, your mom shipped you to boarding school.
And family actually got together, sort of an intervention, family and friends. Because here's the thing, like I was lucky, I wasn't on my own. There were people that cared about me.
Right.
So my failures were not, I can't like blame anybody, right? Like I wasn't a victim. I was just an idiot. Right. So that then became my story later.
You
I'm a dumbass,
that
right?
going to boarding school saved your life.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
Yes. Going to boarding school saved my life. And so I
probably
got shipped out to boarding
physically
school.
and emotionally and mentally.
So that's number one.
Yeah.
Right. And so I had a failure in what I was doing.
Yeah.
And because of that failure, the consequence was I was shipped off to like reform school.
But then what happened at boarding school?
So then I had this great experience in boarding school, right? And not to get into that whole story, I had such a great experience that I got kicked out of boarding school.
Because you didn't
in my 12th grade. I didn't make it through my 12th grade.
You didn't fit in with the expectations and rules.
Once again, I didn't fit in. Always a rebel. And I'm just, you know me,
okay.
Even at my age, I'm somewhat of a wild personality. So
no, you are not.
So at least one of my main personalities is a wild one. So
you're a cool cucumber.
Yeah, exactly. That's me, cool cucumber. So I get expelled from boarding school.
Okay.
And then there's a whole long story.
And you have an opportunity.
Yeah. So I don't graduate from high school.
Yes.
I take my GED.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm starting to build a neurosis of I can't finish things.
Are you smart enough?
Am I smart enough?
Right.
All that kind of stuff. And so then I do the kind of like the junior college thing, which I'm so fond of. Sign up for.
We're not gonna go there.
Sign up for. No, I meant sign up for 3 classes.
Yeah.
Drop 2.
Sure.
Don't do good enough. Don't do well on the last one, and the one that I actually kept. Right.
Okay. Well, you kept one, so you're 1 for 3.
Yeah. Then I had a freak chance to play the game that I loved at a very high level, which was football.
Okay, so football in college.
Yeah, and I got kicked out of that.
Well, what was the letter that they sent you?
Dear Mr. Lyke, due to academic non-perforance,
that's so nice.
We regret to inform you.
Nice way of saying, get out of our
I didn't
school.
Even flunk. Yeah, I didn't.
You
even
are
flunk,
not conforming to our.
Yeah. I didn't even flunk, right? Like I didn't do anything.
You didn't do anything.
Yeah,
okay.
So
now you really have this neurosis that you can't finish things.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I get to.
Interesting.
I get to.
I'm actually learning some things here, even though I've heard this story.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, we always learn.
Yeah, we're gonna have to like.
do
a
so now not only do I not fit in, I still don't fit in anywhere I go.
Right, and you haven't finished anything.
And I can't finish anything.
Well, you finished your GED.
Come on, I walked in, took the test, and walked out and passed.
Okay.
All right, so wow, what to be. So then, and I'm a dumbass.
Okay, so that's your.
So this is my story.
That's your new word.
Right. Well, what's funny about this is, okay, you meet me in my 20s.
Right.
Is that how I look? No.
Right.
Is that how I express myself?
Yeah.
No. Right. I'm still this lively, fun-loving, wild, ambitious. I was always ambitious.
A lot of times on the outside is much different than what's going on the inside.
Of course. And you know, I think one of the things that saved me too was I was very ambitious. So I wanted more, right? Okay. And so I had images of what I wanted more, and that kind of thing. So we're not here to talk about the how. We're just kind of it's the what today, right?
Then you get married, right?
So then I get married for the first time.
Yes.
And I have a child, and I'm in my mid-20s, and this is the first loss of everything that I experienced in my 20s.
It's pretty early on.
Yeah. So I, along the way, I actually, just really quick, I did have the opportunity with a GED and no high school education.
Yeah.
I did fall into the corporate world in the information technology field without knowing anything, and went to work for a company that was growing crazy. And
you were traveling the world?
And not yet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. I was not yet. I got married and then started traveling the world, which is kind of like part of the story that I won't bore everybody with. But I had some success. I had some success, and I had this job, and it was at a technology company in the Silicon Valley, and it was in the late 80s, and I was actually making something of myself. So I thought, oh, here I go, and I accelerated really quickly and started making good money. And I married somebody who was super educated and super capable. And we were absolutely not a match. Let's just put it that way.
Educated.
Let's put it, educated, hard driving. She made good money as well, and so all of a sudden, we had stuff.
It is funny though, because on paper you guys didn't match up, and then on paper we matched up perfectly. Oh, you did? Well, she was educated and you were not.
Well, yeah, that was one thing, but like,
I think you were in your 20s and you were still trying to figure out.
Here's actually the distinction. She now has several advanced degrees. Yeah. She had not yet earned her first. When we
okay.
She was aspiring to, but she was super smart.
So both ambitious.
Her IQ is like through the roof, and a lot of great attributes about her. And we just butted heads, just put it mildly, and it was a war zone, and it was a horrible experience. But we had accumulated a life, so I accelerated very quickly, and we had accumulated a life, and we had cars and houses, and actually when we got divorced, we had 2 houses. And, that was like me coming from like the hood to like this, I felt like I was rich. I really did, because I didn't know any better, because I was coming from nothing, and, relatively speaking. And so, there are statistics out there, and I'm not going to quote this exactly, but most entrepreneurs, when you really get down into the details of where people have lost it, a lot of times there's a divorce involved. And divorces can be, and many times are, I would almost say usually, absolutely financially devastating.
Yes.
Okay.
So rule number 1, try not to get divorced.
Well, like my divorce attorney said, if you want life to be fair, don't get married. No, he said, don't get married and don't have kids.
Okay. Just don't have any responsibilities in life, and you'll be fine.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was, a classic divorce with all the battles and ugliness. And in the course of things, kind of found myself destitute. With nothing, and separated from my child, and really, really struggling. That was my first. And, I got credit got shot. I was struggling with finances. Literally was upside down in every way, in every direction, and I had to come back from that. So that was time.
How did you come back?
That was time number 1. Oh man, how did I come back from that?
It's all great talking about the failures, but how did you come back from such a collapse in your life? And I know this is early on, but we're going to talk about your later on years.
Yeah, because I think about more of the major.
You had time on your side.
Yeah, we haven't got to the major collapse.
You had time on your side. You were only 27.
I did have time on my side. I think,
being a 27-year-old again. You have your whole life ahead of you.
Yeah, and I recognize that.
Yes.
Right? I recognize that. I'm 27 now. The divorce took 2.5 years. Now, this is another lesson that I want to get across. These failures, quote unquote, or what would you call this? Losing everything, right? These events, right? These events, they don't happen overnight.
Right. Yeah, you get dragged along the bottom for a little while.
Well, I'm talking about the actual collapse. Sure. It doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
And what you're talking about is the rebuild. Is the rebuild. That also doesn't happen overnight. Correct. Right. And so all of these things take time. So the divorce was a 2.5 year knockdown, drag out, battle, super struggle. And so all of these things that happened, the ruining of credit, the getting upside down financially, I lost my contract and I had to get another contract. So there was a loss of income there for a while in there and all that kind of stuff. So like that took time.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so 27 is when it started. I'm 29, 30 now.
Okay.
Now
you're getting old.
Getting old now, right? So I'm 29.
30.
I'm 29 or 30 now. And how did I come back from it?
30 seems like a lifetime away.
Yeah. I was still in the IT business.
Okay.
And I still had a lot of support on the business side of it. Okay. And that was the anchor.
Stop banging. You're making a lot of noise here.
I'm using my hands. Right,
okay.
To do the thing. So I'll
sorry about the background noise.
Bang. There.
Okay.
I didn't hear it with my thing in. So I'm at the ripe old age of 30.
Okay.
Ish. In that time frame.
Wrinkles are starting to form.
I think we all have anchors, and I want to talk about anchors because anchors are what we build on, right? So I'll talk about really quick the wheel of life. Right? Okay. The big 5, I call them, right?
The big 5.
The big 5 are career. So we're talking about career.
1.
We're talking about finances.
2.
There's health and relationships.
3.
That's in play in this conversation.
Yep.
Right. There's health and fitness. We haven't talked about that yet. and their spirituality. That's the big 5, right?
Okay.
So everything in our life, everything that goes on in our life revolves around those big 5 and is some derivative.
Yeah.
You know, the spokes that go from there, right?
Okay.
Of the big 5. And so my belief system is that out of those 5, there's always one thing that's not a 0. You know, if on a scale of 1 to 10, right? If each one of those is a spoke, and on a scale of 1 to 10,
so something has to be going.
Something is going. Like, and it's my theory that for everybody, there's something there that's an anchor. And the key is to focus on that anchor and use that. And I use the word anchor because it's that one thing you can anchor on and then start to build on everything else. And so if you think about these big 5, so finances was a problem,
right?
Obviously, relationships was a mess.
Okay.
I also was the first time in my life at that point that I had let myself go fitness wise. Yeah, I was actually chubby.
I know. I saw a picture of you.
It's horrible.
Doesn't even look like you.
You know, I went from being this really high level athlete. I played college football, and then I did, and then I was in triathlons. I did triathlons for years. When I met my first wife, I was in triathlons. I was the leanest.
So you let yourself go,
and then all of a sudden, I was like this chubber, and you know, so that had gone to shit.
So now you're an overweight 30-year-old with no money and no relationships.
Correct. Yeah, relationships trash. I have one son, and we're living in 2 different states. It was a mess, right? It was a mess. But I had one anchor at that point, and that was my career. Okay. I still had my career.
Okay.
I had lost my contract, but because of my relationships, things like that, I was able to. And then I moved. So I moved states. I went from Colorado to Minnesota.
Okay.
And I used that anchor.
Okay.
You focused in on that anchor, and that's
so when
also
you say
when I got
you used the anchor, you focused in on it.
I focused in on it and made sure that I did everything I could to make sure that anchor was running, right, and growing and stuff like that. And
at
then
least
I also
one spoke was working.
And then I also turned my attention back into my health and fitness. So there was a 3-year span where I let myself go.
Okay.
And it did shock me
so
because I was pretty young.
This is a really important lesson. So when you have a collapse like this or an event in your life where you go from up here to down here, either gradually or overnight, what's important is to look at those 5 areas of your life, the 5 spokes of the life wheel,
the big 5,
and figure out what is
just do it
good.
You can do it in 10 minutes.
What's the best out of all of them that you've got right now? Anchor onto that one, and as you focus on that one and grow that one and build that one, then it's kind of like the Atomic Habits book, Building Good Habits. They talk about an anchor habit.
Okay. So
they talk about something. What is one thing that you can do every day or be consistent with, where it's a consistent habit, where by doing that, all the other things, all the other bad habits start to go away and be replaced by good habits.
Yeah,
so
and that's really similar.
Habit.
That's similar to this. And, and to your recommendation, you literally can do this in 10, 15 minutes. I mean, you just take a piece of paper, draw a wheel, draw the 5 spokes. The hub is 0 and the wheel is 10. On a scale of 1 to 10, where are you in these areas? And obviously, you know, both these areas can be, you know, it's oversimplistic to just say relationships.
Sure.
Right? There's all kinds of different relationships, but you know, you can do this for, you know, a familial relationship, romantic relationships, friendships, things like that. But it doesn't take long. Just 0 to 10. Where am I? And you can get an idea of where you're strong and where you're weak.
That and what's interesting and enlightening is when you look at the wheel, a wheel can't go smoothly and efficiently and pick up speed unless it's relatively smooth. So when you look at your wheel and you're a 2 on one spoke and you're a 10 on the other spoke and you're a 4 on one, imagine the bumpy ride that it's going to be.
But most of us are that way, and then we wonder why our life is bumpy.
You are, and the goal is to get a balance between all 5, because then the wheel can move much more efficiently and smoothly.
I'm off to a retreat this weekend.
Yes, you
because I'm working on one of those spokes where I'm literally in a 0
spirituality
today. And so I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I want to stay with the thing. But you know, my point is that we, you know, we're constantly working on this. It's not a one-time thing.
Yeah, your wheel's a little bumpy right now.
Yeah, wheel's bumpy. So you can, but you can 5-10 minutes. You can reevaluate this all the time. So that's the point. So you asked, the question was, how did you do it?
How do you do it?
I'm banging on the table. And my answer is, I focused on the one anchor that I had, made sure that was solid.
Yes.
I then also moved over to the other spokes that I felt I needed to get a handle on. And for me, it was health and fitness, because I've always been a gym rat. I've always been an athlete, and I was appalled at myself for how I let myself
go. So at one point you did have a good habit around health and
totally.
fitness.
Yeah. So, I knew what to do.
Yeah.
And so I did it. So if you don't know what to do, for God's sakes, in this day and age, you can Google health and
fitness. Focus on one anchor.
No, I'm saying if you're moving to another anchor to improve it.
Okay.
And you don't know what to do, for God's sakes, hit Google. There's a million people who
how
give you health and
to
fitness.
lose weight and get healthy.
Yeah. By the way, here's a hint. Eat less, move more. Okay, so I did those two things, and that gradually started to work me out of that. And that didn't take overnight either, right? Like it really took the next. I was in Minnesota for 3 years. I showed up in Minnesota fairly destitute, and 3 years later left on a high. Yeah, on a major high. Okay,
because you were focusing in on your career and your health and fitness.
Focusing on my career and my health and fitness. Relationships started to come back into play.
Because you were focusing on your career and
finances got into a better place. Yes. Right. Stuff like that. I'll also say spirituality for me at that time was a really good thing. Okay. It's a weird story. It's sort of a backward story. But yeah, I think I was getting more balanced around the wheel.
So your wheel was getting smoother.
Wheel was getting smoother. Faster. And as a result, boom, a lot of great things happened, including the funding.
Jinx.
Including the funding of institutional financing for our company that I had gone to Minnesota.
This is an IT company.
With my great friend and old business partner Ken Lee. Who was the
never have met Ken Lee, but I sent him a Christmas card every year. I hear so much about Ken Lee. But you guys had 126 employees
at one point.
And how much money did you raise?
That was a result. Yeah, that was a result of him and I raising institutional financing of $10 million for a company.
Which is hard to do.
Yes, which is very
hard
for
a startup company.
Yeah, especially for some like college kick out. I'm not even a dropout. I'm a kick out.
Right, and you're traveling the world. In Hong Kong?
Yep. Okay. No, Hong Kong was way before that.
Oh, okay.
So yeah,
we got a whole geography lesson the other day, and cultural lesson, and it was great. History lesson on Hong Kong and Asia. It was great.
IT been very, very good to me.
Okay.
So, so here we go.
Okay.
Here we go again.
All right.
Riding high.
Great.
And then.
So company of 126 employees. And then, you're going strong. You're not overweight anymore.
No. In
you're
fact,
building
I'm in the
your
best shape of my life. Best shape of my life.
Great. What happens?
Well, through a combination of kind of getting beyond our experience base.
Right.
Number one.
Okay.
So we didn't know.
It's
a nice way of saying we didn't know what the hell we were doing.
Okay.
with $10 million.
Which is why it's hard to raise $10 million.
Exactly. We didn't know what the hell we were doing with $10 million and 100 employees and new executives who wanted to run us around and
so you ran out of money
and stuff like that. Well, we ran out of money. It's a little more complex than that.
Sure.
When you raise money like that, you go onto a trajectory, especially if you raise money and you're not profitable. And the trajectory is you go through different levels of institutional financing. So they have the lower levels, they have what's called the mezzanine levels, which are the mid levels. And it's all to send you to some exit, right? The exit could be going public.
And you're still relatively young now. You're in
I'm in my mid-30s.
Okay, so you're still learning all of this.
So we're just whippersnappers. And so
whippersnappers. Only an old man says a whippersnapper.
Even at 35, I would have said whippersnapper.
No, I'm so embarrassed to sit next to you right now.
Whippersnapper. You're whippersnappers.
And
what word you would use now there, Mrs. Millennial? Millennials are getting old too, just so you know.
Whatever.
All right. So it's complex because what happened was that was when the .com crash took place, and I don't know how many listeners here were around during that time. You weren't around in the business world at that time.
I was around. I just wasn't.
Yeah, you weren't like
I was young.
Yeah, you were younger, and so
I was a young whippersnapper too, just much younger.
Because now I am an old dude, right? OG.
I was in grade school.
I'm an OG. Okay. I have a lot of references that a lot of our audience doesn't know. But in 2000, and for those that do remember, and for those that don't, in 2000 the markets collapsed.
Okay.
And then in 2001 we had 9/11.
Okay.
And so that kind of happened bam. And so it was actually we went into a recession. We went into a recession period.
Yeah.
And we were up for our second round of financing and the markets dried up.
Okay.
And there was just no money anymore. Nobody was going to put in at that
I don't
time.
know if I knew that whole part of the story.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I have tons of stories. I have a story.
Yeah.
I have a story. Okay, so when I just have to tell the story.
We don't have time for another story.
Okay, no, real quick, I have to tell the story.
We still have more failures to go through.
Oh, that's right. We haven't even got to the big failures.
No, all right. Let's
all right,
another day.
Another day.
Yeah, because we've only got like 10 more minutes.
Lots of stories.
Okay.
When you're an OG, you have lots of stories.
Do you know that this whole time I thought OG stood for old guy? Old guys.
It's original.
And gangster. I was corrected the other day. It's original gangsters.
I think I actually qualify for the OG
because usually OGs are old guys.
Well, true.
Yeah, it's true. It's original gangsters.
But I think I qualify for the true deacronization.
Well, now I know that it's
because I was a hoodlum.
Yeah. Well, and I was thinking old guy as in wise. They've been in it for a while. So not a nice way of saying. It's a nicer way of saying is original gangsters.
Yes, that would be me. So anyway, us OGs have a lot of stories.
Okay. So now you're in your you're 38, 40 years old. What happens?
I'm in my mid 30s and we have to collapse the company.
Okay.
It was devastating.
Yeah.
You know, you had this vision.
Right.
You've brought everybody in. Everybody's super excited.
A lot of time and energy
building relationships. And now you're basically like, you're going from 100 some employees down to like 6.
Okay.
Like 6.
Okay.
And so that long story short was very painful. That brought on a lot of financial hardship.
How did you recover from that? What was it that you then focused on when we talk about the spokes of the wheel? What was your anchor when that collapsed?
Well, I think, so the anchor there was, I was married.
Yeah.
Second time. And there was support there.
Yep.
At the time.
So you were focused on relationship?
So relationship was a decent anchor, I'll say. It wasn't the I'll say this, it wasn't the kind of anchor that you and I have.
Okay.
But it was enough.
Thanks, babe.
It was enough. Also, career was still there. I was still running the company. I still had clients, things like that. So this isn't a this is a little bit more like if Tesla were to go under.
Sure. Okay.
Right. It would be
painful.
It would be it would be painful. Yeah. It would be in the news. Elon Musk would be all over the place as a collapse.
But he'd still be driving around.
He'd still go home in his Mercedes and actually had a Mercedes. So I went home in my Mercedes and licked my wounds and went into a different chapter in my business. Okay. So it was a collapse, but a different kind. So I guess I could say I've had both.
Okay.
Yeah, it was painful though.
Yeah, I bet.
I would say even more painful
because
there's so many others involved.
Yes,
there's so many other people that you care about that are involved.
Yes.
Something like that. It was.
So you probably feel like you let people down in the company and in your life.
Totally, it was surreal. It was surreal.
So it's a more hit. It's a more hit to your personal side.
I almost don't even think about it much anymore because it's so painful to think about.
Sorry.
So anyway.
Get you a tissue.
Tito, give me a tissue.
Oh my God.
Another OG.
You have so many lines from movies, and half the time
they're from like 30 years ago.
What the hell you're talking about? And then you have to explain to me what movie it was from and why it's relevant to what we're talking about and why I should be laughing at it.
That's because it's 30 years ago.
Does anyone say this quote again?
Tito, get me a tissue.
Does anyone out there know what that is
I guarantee they don't.
Oh my God. Anyways.
So anyway. Oops.
Okay. So now you're 38, 40 and you're married. And oh my gosh. No. I know where to go.
Let me do it.
He lost his slide.
No, I didn't.
You're 30. I know your story. You're 38, 40 and now you're now in the rank of a second divorce. So
yes.
That is
right.
Right.
Well,
so
it's
you're
more
building
than that.
You're building your
So
company
it's more
back
than
up.
that. This is actually when I got into real estate. So a lot of people don't.
Yes,
a lot of people today, they associate real estate, our life in real estate, as you and me.
Right. But it was at one point you.
And unless you know the story, you wouldn't know that I actually got into real estate really heavy. It was actually one of the things that I did after the 2000 collapse.
Yeah.
Because I said, oh, okay, I need to diversify. I need to learn another asset class.
Yeah.
And so while I was doing IT stuff, I went and learned real estate.
And you got started with the No Money Down.
I did the No Money Down. All that kind of stuff. Russ Whitney. It was Russ Whitney program.
Russ Whitney program.
Yeah, it was Russ Whitney program. That's when I met. That's when I met Ron.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. Our old mentor and now broker.
Yeah.
And now business partner. Yeah. Oh my gosh, you have such a long relationship.
Yeah, we've had
Ron.
a super long relationship. So I got into real estate and did
a
really well for a few years. Here's the funny part.
Yeah.
So did everybody else in 2003, 2004, 2005, 2006 until 2007. Dun, dun, dun.
Which is around the time you got divorced too, right?
Right. So I had the double whammy.
Ooh.
So this is where.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, the first round was the relationship collapse.
Yes.
Okay. The second round was a business collapse.
Okay.
This is the two put together.
Interesting.
And this is absolutely
so it's almost like the God knew that you could handle both because you handled both of them individually. I'm just going to give it to you both at the same time.
Double whammy.
Yeah.
Okay. And this one put me on the streets.
So this was both business bankruptcy and personal bankruptcy.
Well, I didn't go bankruptcy.
I know. When I say
let's
bankruptcy,
be careful here. I never
yeah.
went bankrupt.
And
I worked my shit out. Just for everybody can hear, I worked my shit out. Yes. But it was a personal collapse as well as a business collapse.
Okay, I take that back. Yes, it was a collapse. A collapse.
Even my first company, the 2000 crash,
didn't go bankrupt.
I didn't go bankrupt. No, I just had to downsize it.
Okay.
And it was painful. So yeah, I've never gone bankrupt.
That's interesting.
I've never been in bankruptcy court. Let's get that straight. Okay.
Everyone, has that been noted? Have you written that down? Okay. So that was 2007.
It was 2000. Again, things don't happen.
Bang on the
things
table.
don't happen overnight.
Okay. Yeah.
They matriculate.
Though the 2007 crash was overnight.
No, it wasn't. Look, the relationship part was falling apart.
Yeah.
So I'm struggling there.
Yep.
I had made some decisions about focusing on real estate full time.
Yes.
And I got away from the IT business. That was, in hindsight, a tactical error on my part.
Mm-hmm.
There was lots of things going on.
Mm-hmm.
I could see that the market was changing.
Yeah.
I could see that I was so in what was going on, right? In the mortgage business and everything. I remember saying many times to friends and colleagues, like, this can't continue. There's no more. I mean, they were coming up with like 50-year interest-free loans that were coming out of that mainstream mortgage providers were. It was absolutely insane.
Everyone was literally going.
And I was like, "There's no way you can't go to a 150-year interest-free mortgage so that someone can qualify, right? Like, somebody that's driving a truck or works in a school or all of these things that are all great." But you can't you can't just have to end.
So we all know what happened.
And we all know what happened, right?
Yes.
So we all know what happened. And I'm in the midst of real estate business.
Right.
So I will say too, the two things.
Wasn't there a hurricane too that kind of wiped one of your properties out at the same time?
Yeah, actually that was a few. That actually was the beginning of the end.
Okay.
It's really funny. And that goes back to
so
2004.
the hurricane ended it all.
No, yeah, that goes back to 2004. So that's what's interesting about how these things take time. And I keep saying this because people, if you're listening and you're interested in this topic, these things are trending.
Yeah.
These things are trending for you. And so you want to see how things are trending. So I had 38 units or something like that in West Palm Beach, Florida. I'm living in California. I'm having a hard time managing them in Florida. And it was when Charlie came through, but we had 4 hurricanes that year in 2004. Right. You were in school, right? You were in grad school.
I was living in the dorms and they kicked us out every single time a hurricane came.
So they have, so Charlie was one of them, but Charlie wasn't my problem. My problem was Francis and Jean over the course of 2 or 3 weeks actually came right over Palm Beach. 1 and then 2. And almost all my tenants were displaced and I was in contract to sell it. And that was that's a whole nother, we could actually do a podcast on that use case. That would be an amazing podcast. That was 6-month battle with the seller, with the insurance company. It was insane. And that, I think, now that you mentioned it, I'd never thought about this, was the trigger that started sending things on a downward trajectory. Okay. Then the marriage isn't going well. Right. And now marriage isn't going well. You start making bad decisions. Right. And it just starts to build. You go 2004, 2005, 2006. So it's
a gradual collapse.
Yeah, 2006. Okay. I mean, I'm with Aiden by myself. Yeah, 2005, 2006. It's just me and him by ourselves. Yeah. And it's the Pursuit of Happiness story. You know, with Will Smith. I couldn't watch that movie for years.
Oh, really?
Couldn't watch that movie for years. And then I watched it. There's so many parallels. Like and we got to the point where we were really close to not having a place to live. So that is how absolutely collapsed my life became. Yeah. Of course, I'm indebted all over the place. Right. Now, over the years, I've since worked that out. Yeah. So that was the most devastating event / experience. And it took a while to get there. And then all of a sudden you find yourself in this horrific place. Yeah. And I would say that some of the lessons out of this is that I realize now that I had learned helplessness. Tony Robbins talks about learned helplessness. You get into a state of learned helplessness. During that time period, forgot who I was. I forgot what I was capable of. I felt like such a failure. I felt like I was a college kick-out. I didn't have the kind of technical skills I needed to go back in IT. I'd been out of it for a while. I just the self-talk that's going on during a collapse like this is immense. And debilitating. Like, I just wasn't, and you just continue not to recognize what's going on. You continue not to understand who you are, what you're capable of, and taking appropriate action is really, really difficult. And you just continue to sink until you hit bottom. And what I've learned is, and you've heard this before, and it makes sense. And it makes real sense when you've experienced it, is, what's bottom for one person is not bottom for another, right? So when do you hit your bottom? And so, I hit my bottom probably a year before I met you. So we're talking like 2009. So this is a long trajectory.
So when I met you, you had moved across the country. You had moved from California. Your mom and Adrian had moved. You were trying to make ends meet. And that was in 2010 when we met.
Yeah.
It was actually an interesting time when we met.
Yeah, it's a super interesting time when we met. Because here's what you want to ask me. What anchor was I using at that time?
Yeah, what anchor? Oh, your health and fitness.
Health and fitness.
Oh my gosh.
That is all I had.
You were so into health and fitness.
I was in my 40s.
Yeah.
I was in my 40s.
I met you when
now let's break this down.
Mid-40s.
Let's break this down. This is how pathetic this sounds. I'm in my 40s.
Yeah.
I've lost everything.
Yeah.
I'm in massive debt. I'm sharing a car with my mom.
Yes, you were.
And
You're living in a room in your friend's house.
Yeah, I'm living in a room in my friend's house, and I'm raising my son by myself.
Yes.
That's how pathetic I was when right as I met Kari. Then the next question is,
well, you
the
can
question. The real question.
I married you for your money.
No, not at all. The real question.
I married you for your good looks and your fitness and health.
Yeah, fitness and health. It was more than that, but. That's the real question I get, is how the hell did you pull that off? But that is a completely different podcast. And that's a completely different story. So the real question is, what anchor did I use? And it was the health and fitness anchor. It was the health and fitness anchor.
Yeah.
And again, we'll get back. I'm going to go also to the 6 human needs and my number one need. My number one need is love and connection. It always has been. All the other needs, as far as ranking first, second, third, and fourth, they've all sort of switched at different times in my life.
So you were also focused on relationships.
Well, not in a different way.
In a different way, though, because when I met you, you were going out with friends all the time. You had a big social network. You had a big dating network. I mean, come on. Yeah. You were surrounded by with people, with close connections. Yeah.
And so health and fitness is what the anchor was. And then I used that to leverage new relationships and different kind of relationship.
Right.
Because the last thing, look, divorced twice. 2 children from 2 different marriages.
Yeah, you were a catch.
Yeah. Well, can I finish?
Yes, you can finish.
Divorced twice.
Yes.
2 children from 2 different marriages.
Yes.
I felt at the time that I needed another marriage and another child, like I needed a flipping hole in my head. So I sought out different kinds of relationships at that point.
Sure.
Because love and connection was my number one need.
Yeah.
And, and I actually put that before finances. I think I just needed to feel, I needed to feel alive.
Yeah.
I needed to feel alive because, one of our viewers, messaged us here and, said numb to everything.
And numb to everything.
Yeah, I had become super, super numb and I needed to feel alive. And so I used the anchor of health and fitness to leverage different kinds of relationships. Now, this was the more fun, non-committal, have a good time type relationship that I really am glad I did for a number of reasons, right? Because I've done that now, right? And it was wonderful. And so that's how I built that. That was the anchor that I used. And then little by little, I continued to work. I never stopped working.
Man.
I never stopped being an entrepreneur. I never stopped trying.
Yes.
I kept, one initiative or one sort of business line after another, right? Just trying to say, what is it that I'm going to use as a career anchor to get myself back on track? Look, I haven't been an employee that has collected a W-2 paycheck from a company that wasn't my own since 1994.
Because you're an OG.
Because I'm an OG. Well, no, because I'm a true entrepreneur. Like
I know.
going to work for somebody would be just I mean, literally like
Danielle and I were just talking about literally this morning. She was talking about her teaching career and how she had sick days and vacation days and how they set the budget every year and how they had a $500 bonus. And I was like, oh my God, I don't think if I had to, I would go back to it, but I would make sure I never had to go back.
Well, I think that I think I'm living proof that you don't have to.
Yeah.
I didn't. I was destitute.
That's not for you.
I was destitute. And one thing I knew was I could never go back and have a job. Not with my background. There's no way. Even with all the learned helplessness that was going on.
You couldn't have other people tell you what to do and dictate your
schedule? It isn't about that, because I follow the leadership of a lot of people. I have clients in the IT business today, right?
No,
are you just being sarcastic? Sure, I just need to give you one of these. It's not that. It's more than that. It's not about people telling you what to do. It's the schedule. It's the clocking in, the clocking out,
the inflexibility.
The inflexibility. You're on somebody else's.
It's the non-freedom and
it's non-freedom.
What Laura, our friend Laura, was saying is, oh my God, she was telling people who haven't met you, wait till you meet Howie. Howie loves his freedom like no one else I have ever met in all areas of his life.
Everything
if
you
had like freedom. One word for Howie, it is freedom.
My number one value.
Yeah.
So
right.
that is the story, right? And so
what's interesting is, I mean, when I met you, both of us, I was just starting my career and I had debt also, and so I was like making ends meet. You were basically just starting to rebuild, but hadn't yet. And we were living in this
treehouse.
We called it the treehouse. It was a 500 square foot apartment in the back of someone's house. It was like a mother-in-law suite.
Yep.
I was going to work every day to pay the bills. You were trying to get your business started. We were sharing a car, I believe, at the time.
Yeah. So. No.
We had old Betsy. The old red,
yes, yeah.
Betsy.
Oh my God, a Golf, a Volkswagen Golf.
Oh my God, it was so old, and it was a stick shift, and it had the crank windows. I think I remember.
Yep.
And man, to look back and see where we've come from there, both
and what we've done
spiritually, emotionally, financially, relationship
business,
wise, and all of the spokes of our wheel. Have been kind of amazing.
Yeah, no, I mean, there's just nothing but, it is amazing.
Yeah.
Lots of gratitude.
There is, and I think that if we were to have a collapse, like some of the ones that you had, it would be, much different for you.
It's interesting because when you've survived something like that, it doesn't frighten you anymore. I'm not afraid of it.
Yeah.
And we went from, this is I think this is a very good point too, that everybody should consider. We've all had those times in our lives where we had nothing to lose, so for some of those listening, it's that time when maybe you came out of college and you're carefree and you didn't have anything, maybe a little college debt, you didn't have anything to lose. And so, you get into these situations where you have something to lose. And then, that's when the fear really kicks in.
Yes.
I think the one upside to having collapses like I have is a couple things. Like you're so much more wise to see it coming.
Yeah.
I see signs of it in our life all the time. And then I lean into them.
You pivot.
Because I've got the experience, right? And, but I can't control everything.
Sure.
And so, do I know how to live on $20 a day? Yeah, I know how to live on $20 a day. Like we could do it. And so it does actually, the upside too is it does remove fear. It removes a lot of fear. Now, do I want to go back there? Hell no.
You've had enough.
Hey, look, guys, we talk about happiness. Happiness has nothing to do with wealth, right? But I've been happy, poor.
You've been happy,
and I've been happy, wealthy. And let me tell you something. I like the happy wealthy way better than the happy poor.
It's a lot nicer showing up to your problems in a Mercedes versus old Betsy.
I should get myself a Mercedes again.
The old Betsy was fun to drive.
Just for the record, I drive a truck, but I'm very happy with it. It's my Cadillac.
It's
my Cadillac.
It's got like 4 dents in it right now too. The thing is a huge truck that we like to beat up.
It's totally my Cadillac. So how would you summarize all the what have you learned in this?
What I've learned is when you have a collapse in your life or an event in your life that takes you from high to low, what's useful is to look at the wheel of life, 5 areas of your wheel of life and the different spokes, to put a number to those and to focus on that one anchor spoke so that all the other spokes over time smooth out.
Right. Because the theory is you're not a 0 on all 5.
Right.
You're not.
That was number 1. Number 2 is just this gradual collapse. We all think of these, when we say a collapse means from here to here quickly.
It's like there was an earthquake one day and there's a mudslide and it just
and it's a collapse.
Like
but in reality, in life, collapses are generally gradual and rebuilding is gradual. So it's not like this, I collapsed and then I rebuilt the next day. It's this gradual collapse and then this gradual rebuild. And it does take time. And I think that's really, really important because you can become very frustrated, very impatient, and very counterproductive if you don't realize that it takes time. It takes time for these things to occur, and it takes time for these things to recover.
Yeah.
So those were my 2 takeaways, and I just love you more for it because all your battle scars, my God. I don't have as many battle scars as you do. And I guess my battle scars are a little bit different than yours.
Well, I think it's a thing too, because this is funny. Kari has been...
I've been along for the ride for the last 13 years, and it's been rocky sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only that, but Kari's been present to being around entrepreneurs now for quite a number of years. And she said to me, I feel like to be a real entrepreneur, you have to have a collapse. And like, I haven't had any collapses in my life. And I feel like I have to do that. And I'm like, I don't think so.
I haven't had the collapse that you have had.
Yeah.
Or that other people have had in my life. And when I think about the collapses they have, sometimes I question, would I be able to recover from such a collapse? I've never had that kind of collapse before. And there is wisdom in those kinds of experience. There's knowledge that is built and wisdom and so sometimes I think, well, maybe I haven't had enough of those life experiences to have the wisdom that you have.
My response to that is twofold. I think one is, you've been in business now over 10 years and you've had ups and downs and you've had setbacks and all that kind of stuff. And so those are very real.
Yes.
And have driven a ton of experience. I mean, I come to you as my chief consultant for so many things, right? And I think the other thing too is you've had the advantage of being around the OGs who have had the collapses, and I mean, just the fact that you saw fit to love someone as pathetic as me, 13 years ago. 12 to 13 years ago.
You're an incredible pathetic person, no?
Sorry, you're a tremendous slouch.
You're a tremendous slouch.
So, no, but like you've been able to learn, right?
Yeah.
Like you've been able to understand, and you know the stories and the things, and we talk about those things. And so, I think you have a huge advantage on that. And I don't think that is your lot in life at all. Yeah. Where you have to have some massive collapse and you're on the streets. And this is not, it's not your path.
Okay. Well, then I'll live vicariously through you and your collapses.
I do think though, on that note, that's a really good point for the audience, which is, if you have some similar experiences to Kari, if you're in the business, you never, like, oh my God, like to be a real entrepreneur, I got to have a collapse, right? Not really. Like go get around people like myself, and others that that have had it, and spend time with them, spend time learning with them, use them as mentors.
Yes.
Right. Get their opinion of, if you see something that you just have a gut feeling about that's trending, because remember, as things start trending, it doesn't just happen like that for the most part. Go to those types of mentors and ask, hey, what do you think? What do you see happening here?
Yeah.
And I think that can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're going to put a bow on this one.
All right.
That was a good one. Anything else you want to add before we leave for the day?
That I'm a tremendous slouch.
You're a tremendous failure, and I love you for it.
Thank you.
And now you're going to get on a plane to go work on a spoke of your life.
Yeah,
and this is exciting, and I won't see you until Monday.
I know.
Yeah.
Look at you.
All right, guys. We'll see you on the next episode. And remember, you're only one deal away.